Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, World Alternative Media here, and of course we're joined by author and economic analyst here at WAM, John Sneisen, and a Zero Hedge reports Connecticut state capital prepares for bankruptcy amid collapse in hedge fund revenue. So John, can you go into this story? It's something that we seem to be seeing a lot across the United States.
Well, first of all, you saw hedge fund there. Why is the government investing in a hedge fund? First of all, they're a bunch of morons. Hedge funds are there to rip people off mostly and take a mass amount of profit.
But hey, wait, isn't that the whole point of the government too? Doesn't that make sense?
Well,
It's a
yeah,
match
I
made in
guess,
heaven.
yeah, I guess they're working together, colluding to steal from each other. The two of the same. Who can steal the most, right? No. They're having serious issues with tax revenues as the state's top 100 highest paying taxpayers have declined by 45%. Now, what you got to remember, since 2011, they've had a Democratic, of course, governor there, and they had about 6 years' time to, completely destroy and implement higher taxes and Keynesian economics into the Connecticut economy.
And crazy, crippling regulations that push small businesses out of the markets as well, of course.
Yeah, and all surprised, that the tax base are crumbling. Well, it's because people that believe that you have to tax people more and more and more to sustain the government are going to have less and less and less people wanting to be there. And you're going to see massive amount of black economy where people are dealing under the table to avoid taxes. And that's what's happening. That's what's happening all around the world. Norway, my home country, is one of the highest countries in the world when it comes to working under the table.
Absolutely.
Because people are fed up with this stupid taxation model. Yeah. And as we see all of these massive government pension funds and everything is evaporating because they promised mass amount of returns. And of course, that was only possible for a tiny little bit of time, right when they created them, maybe. But today, it's a castle in the sky. There's nothing left of these funds, and they're collapsing one by one slowly. And you've seen CalPERS and a whole bunch of Texas. We were talking about Dallas, Texas, and a whole bunch of other states and major cities around the world, their governments are collapsing because they become too big and unsustainable, and people are fed up with them.
Well, and people get crushed under the weight of it, because the bigger the government gets, the heavier it is for the individuals on the bottom to hold it up until they are collectively crushed underneath it. And that's why free markets are such a great idea, because, well, true free markets have never really been tried in the United States. Let's put it that way. But the whole idea of a free market is that there is vast amounts of competition, and it depends on the demand of the individual instead of a collective demand, faulty artificial demand by the state. And when we see so much statism involved, we see all these regulations involved. These regulations are Hegelian, the Hegelian dialectic of problem, reaction, solution, repeat. And these regulations are there to apparently stop the big monopolies. But what they actually do is they create the government state-sponsored favored monopolies while pushing the small businesses out of the market, taxing the small businesses to death, and it causes there to be little innovation and little competition, which means higher prices and lower wages and more unemployment. And it just seems to be so obvious to those of us who actually study the most basic economics and market principles, but to most people, they don't know about this because they go through public schooling and they don't understand how taxation is theft, how the free markets actually help pull us out of the situation instead of having this so-called collective enforcement of democracy instead of the collective, the voluntary collective democracy that is us voting with our dollar and giving demand to that which we enjoy and like, and creating that innovation. Because when there is more businesses competing in the market, which comes with lower taxes, no regulations, then you see a vast amount of innovation and people are competing for the lowest price instead of just being able to get off on their high horse as the government inflates their demand artificially, and watch as the small businesses all evaporate, because you don't need to have any great demand. You don't need to have any great innovation to be able to stay at the top. So for that reason, we're not seeing the great innovations in the medical field. We're not seeing the great innovations in technology that we should be seeing. Instead, we see a watered down version of innovation at the allowance of the state. And that is a huge problem. And we're watching this start to cripple economies across the world, cripple the markets, and it's no different in Connecticut.
No, in Connecticut, of course, you got Hartford, a city there, which is facing next year a $65 million deficit. And of course, we just told you that at the start of the whole article. We were talking about Keynesian economics and deficits. And this is what they believe, that they could keep on racking up this massive deficit, just borrow money without the consent of any citizens that are taxpayers, which has to initially pay that back. And then they say, well, we're going to have to get into more debt next year because we're going to have to make sure that our debt that we paid last year was less. So they believe that they can print more and more money as they get into more and more debt, because as you inflate the currency supply, the debt gets cheaper. Well, the problem is, yeah, to a point, you're right. But to a second point, that currency is going to become so worthless that all people that uses it is going to say enough is enough. And then you're going to have a revolution on your hand, and your whole system of Keynesian economics is going to fall and shatter as it should have for a long time ago.
Absolutely. Collectivism begets more collectivism. Government begets more government. It continues on and on and on perpetually forever until the people are absolutely crippled and enslaved in servitude to the debt that has been forced upon them. Now, John, it would be good for you to give the people of Connecticut a bottom line and what they should do.
Well, bottom line, you need to start eliminating a massive amount of the government. They are the ones creating all these problems. You can't create a solution of more government when you have a problem. There's always, this belief that the government is the solution to everything.
Yeah.
And you need to implement more and more government. Well, yeah, that's great. But at one point, that government has to get paid, and it's going to come out of your own pocket, because the government does not have any income. The only income they have is your taxes that you pay to them, that you worked hard for, that came out of the private sector. And you just need to eliminate massive amounts of government. We got to stop this insanity of this big, massive, growing government, or else you're going to sit with a revolution on your hand, with a communist takeover.
Absolutely.
If you don't stand up and tell people we need to either eliminate this government or have a very, very small amount of it, because if we don't, we are gone, and our whole system of prosperity is done.
And even a small amount of government will lead to bigger government
Of
over
course.
time. Statism doesn't solve the problems of statism. Voluntary interactions between free individuals is what people should stick to. Real freedom. So thanks, John, for going into this. Check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so incredibly and vastly demonetized and censored by YouTube. Also, check our address for Bitcoin in the description and the comments, as well as on the screen for you to scan, if you please. And check our link to the Red Pill Expo, which takes place June 23rd to 24th in Bozeman, Montana, where you could see people like G. Edward Griffin, Robert Kiyosaki, Lord Monckton, James Corbett, Cynthia McKinney, Richard Gage, Ty Bollinger, Mike Adams, and the list goes on and on and on.
Sigurdson.
Yeah, me.
And
hey.
John Sneisen.
Absolutely. So we hope to see you there. Check that link, buy your tickets. But until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson and John Sneisen signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.